Coming up on Big Ten today, the Hoosiers have their man. Darian DeVries taking over in Bloomington. The new IU head coach joins us live. We are a day away from the Big Ten beginning its March Madness journey. Rapheal Davis here with his thoughts on who's poised to make a deep run. And it's conference tourney time in gymnastics. Olivia Karras gives us the teams and individuals to keep an eye on this weekend in Ann Arbor. It's all on Big Ten today. Now. Welcome in. It is Big Ten today. We are presented by Walmart. Great to have you with us, Dave Refson and Rapheal Davis, on a day that began with major coaching news. The Hoosiers hiring Darian DeVries. We had a chance to hear his news conference. Pretty exciting hire for IU.
Oh, I'm super excited. I love Coach. I love the philosophy. I love the mentality that he has. I love how his former players talk about him, how his former bosses, the coaches that he's worked for, they say he's a hard worker. After listening to that press conference, I am all in. I think it's going to be some fun times in Bloomington, Indiana. College basketball is so much better when Indiana is a powerhouse. I think Coach is going to get him there.
No doubt. Pretty exciting times for the Hoosiers. It is our big story today, and in case you're not totally up to speed, DeVries replacing Mike Woodson, who stepped down after 4 years at the helm of his alma mater. DeVries comes from West Virginia, spent just one season there. The Mountaineers were the first team left out of the NCAA tourney this year. Prior to that, 6 years at Drake in his home state of Iowa, leading the Bulldogs to 3 NCAA tourney berths after they had been to just one in the prior 47 seasons. Mentioned DeVries is from Iowa. He played hoops at Northern Iowa. His brother Jared, an outstanding football player for the Hawkeyes, spent 20 years on the staff at Creighton, 17 as an assistant coach for Dana Altman and Greg McDermott before getting the Drake job. He's the 4th Hoosier coach in the last 10 seasons, taking over a program that's won just 2 NCAA tourney games since 2017.
The way we want to build this program and build it to a level that is sustainable and be at a very high level, there are certain things that we feel, that I feel is important in our program. And I thought those all aligned with the administration as we went through that process. So, getting into more details later about the offense, defense, all those type of things. But more importantly, that the process, we can't cheat the process. The work has to go into it. The type of players that we bring into our program have to match what we're about. I think the majority of your winning takes place on the very front end. Your coaching staff, the players you bring into your program, what are their qualities? What's important to them? Are they self-starters? Are they self-motivated? Are they team players? Those type of things are all important to us. And as that process played out, it was clear and evident to me that this was going to be a great fit, for myself, for our family, and can't be more excited to be here.
A lot of really good stuff, and he hit on a number of those themes in several different ways, Rapheal, just kind of talking about, hey, you have to have talented players. I don't think he certainly never said we don't want to get the best guys in here. Right. What he said is we have to get the best guys that also fit what we want to do, that are excited to be part of the team, that are as much great team players and great locker room guys as they are great individual talents. And it feels like, particularly in this day and age, you cannot put a price on that. That is the most important thing, is in a world where you have to make a lot of decisions on players very quickly, you've got to figure out what are the parameters that we want to build around, and how do we get the right guys in here?
Oh, yeah, I love what Coach said. It reminds me a lot of what Coach Payne used to talk about during my time at Purdue. I go back to it. We finished dead last in the Big Ten with a pretty talented team. Guys just didn't mesh in the locker room. Guys did not care about playing hard. Guys did not care about winning at Purdue. They cared about winning so they can get to the next level. They can get to the NBA. They go play professionally. And I love what Coach said. We will not give into it. We won't give into the rankings. We won't give into the red flags. You could be the most talented talented guy, but if you don't fit in this lineup, if you don't fit in this locker room and what we want to do, we're not going to take you. And I love that thought process. It fits in right there with Coach Painter, right there with Coach Izzo, right there with Coach May in this league. It's going to be big time. And then he spoke about retainment. We always talk about how fast can you build in the portal. And yeah, he's going to have to use the portal this season, but he spoke about building out of the high school ranks, getting guys on campus that want to be there for 4 years. So then you have to add pieces as he goes on. I love this recruiting process. I love the thought process because everyone wants to talk about X's and O's, offense and defense. None of that matters if your locker room isn't right. And coach is focused on the right things right now. But I love his play style as well, especially talks about getting up and down, scoring in 12 seconds. I think it's going to be big time going forward in Bloomington.
It's pretty interesting because if you kind of look back on him historically as a coach, he's played at slower paces, he's played at faster paces. But it's obvious that in an ideal world, he wants to play faster. But I think that's a testament to you do what works best with the group that you have, and it's going to be fascinating to see who stays at Indiana. He mentioned wanting to talk to all the guys and saying, hey, if there's a mutually good fit here, by all means you want to keep him. Does he bring his son, Tucker DeVries? I mean, I can't imagine that he doesn't.
You got to talk to mom first.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like that'd be a fairly easy recruitment process. He is an outstanding player, a two-time Missouri Valley Player of the Year. So, I mean, he's really good and an excellent piece to get you going. But again, he talked about this as a long-term thing. And I think in the immediate term, if you get an infusion of a really good player, a number of good players that are shot in the arm, we saw it, Dusty May went from worst to first. I mean, they were literally the worst team in the Big Ten a year ago. They end up winning the Big Ten tournament. So can it be done? Of course it can be done.
You're right.
But I think that he made it clear that he sees this as a long-term deal and about the process, and the process is building a sustainably really good program.
Yeah, and I love what he said. He embraces the history. He knows how passionate the fan base is. He wants that. He wants the fans to be on him because he said it. No one wants to win more than he does, and that's what he brings to that locker room. And if guys want to stay and be a part of that program, I think they're going to have a bunch of fun. You're going to be able to get up and down. You're going to be able to have your fun on the floor as long as you play hard. Coach seems like a guy where if you play hard, you bust your tail defensively, he gives you some freedom to play offensively. So I talked to Trent Sisley. I talked to his father, the freshman recruit coming in, the 4-star kid from Santa Claus, Indiana. They are so excited to be a part of this. They think they fit great in the system. They understand how great of a guy Coach is. I think he's going to bleed in the recruits. He's going to bleed into the transfer portal. Coach's mentality, especially on the defensive end, going along with how he treats his team and how he treats his guys, I think it makes for a perfect hire, man.
We're going to have Darian DeVries on here in just a little bit on Big Ten today, so plenty more Hoosier coverage to come. His expectation, his hope is to have Indiana in the NCAA tournament a year ago. But let's focus in here briefly on the teams that are in this year, and we've got 4 of them set to play coming up on Thursday. So tomorrow, 4 Big Ten teams make their debut. Starts with Purdue and High Point South Regional game. The Boilers, the 4 seed, early tip there. Wisconsin tips just under an hour later in Denver against Montana. Then 2 games in the evening, UCLA and Utah State in Lexington. And then Michigan has UC San Diego, also in Denver, 10 Eastern. Let's run through those games. Let's start with Michigan. This has become kind of a fashionable upset pick here, Rapheal. There's a lot of excitement about UC San Diego. This is the first year that they've been in the NCAA tournament. There is one thing that they do very well, which is turn teams over, and we know Michigan has trouble. But I'm a little surprised. I mean, I know there's a lot of 12 versus 5s. I think Michigan was horribly underseeded. I cannot for the life of me fathom how they are a 5 seed and why they are in this game against a team that by the metrics is one of the best mid-majors, if not the best mid-major in the country. But it's still, I mean, are people overreacting here and saying, like, this is the one you got to pick, 12 over 5?
100%. People are overreacting. They're disrespecting Michigan. They're disrespecting the Big Ten. You look at Michigan, you win the Big Ten tournament, you tie for second in the Big Ten in Dusty May's first year. Vlad Golden is a problem. Vlad Golden could have easily been the player of the year in this league. And Danny Wolf is a top 20 draft pick. And Trey Donaldson is one of the better point guards in this conference. I don't care about the turnovers issue. Just like I don't care that Michigan State doesn't shoot the 3-ball well. Sometimes that just is who you are at that point of the season, Michigan makes up for it in other ways. You look at UC San Diego, they can't prepare for 2 7-footers hitting them on the offensive glass. They can't prepare for that big-to-big ball screen action on the wing. And what do? Do you switch? Do you stay? That is going to be a problem. And then with the development of Michigan's guard play throughout the Big Ten tournament, I love Michigan reaching an Elite Eight. Trey Donaldson was huge in Indianapolis, averaged 12 points, 8 assists throughout the tournament. Roddy Gale got some confidence offensively. We know what he can do defensively. Namari Burnett is a guy that can make shots on any floor in America. And then LJ Kaysen off the bench, he gave them some production from a guard standpoint. I love what Coach May has put together. I know the country is going against Michigan right now, going against the Big Ten, it seems, but I'm not wavering. I think Michigan takes this game, and I think they make a deep run.
I'm with you on taking this game. I just don't think that UC San Diego, I mean, the 2 7-footers, the unique challenges that Michigan presents, I am concerned about the turnovers. So I'm a little different from you there. Does it bite them in this game?
Right.
I'm not sure. There have been times they've been really careless with the basketball. I also just wonder, man, 12-1 against conference foes in games decided by 4 points or less. It feels like that's unsustainable, but I mean, they've done it all year. Like at a certain point, it feels like I don't want to say it's luck because I don't think it's luck,
right.
But I just think like the odds of continually winning close game after close game are against you. Michigan's done it. So they've proven they've overcome the odds this year. And a lot of it is a testament to how well coached they are, how good their players are, the unique matchup challenges. We'll see. But again, I'm surprised at how many people seem head over heels over UC San Diego. Let's talk about Wisconsin. This is a team that I was really concerned about down the stretch. It just felt like, particularly that Penn State game, but they hadn't been playing all that well going down the stretch. You had a key player absence, which I do think was part of it.
Yep.
And it just seems like they found, well, first of all, they got Max Klesman back, so that's a huge part of it, the Big Ten tournament. But it also feels like they kind of refound themselves. And I understand they shot the ball horribly against Wisconsin, or against Michigan. I think that's just tired legs,
right.
shooting 22%. But I think if you looked at who they were those first 3 days of the Big Ten tournament, if they're that team, they can make a deep run.
Yeah, because we've talked all season what they can do offensively. John Tonje's a stud. Wisconsin, they can put points on the board like they never have been in the past. But in the Big Ten tournament, like Coach Gar said, they got their bite back defensively. They were big time defensively in the Big Ten tournament. They forced all of their opponents to score less than 75 points in the ball game outside of Maryland when they made that big run towards the end. But they held teams in front of them. They protected the basket in the extreme rate. I looked at it, and you look at their interior defense. You look at their opposing teams in the Big Ten tournament on layups. They were 30 of 59 on layups. That just means Vlad Golden, Danny Wolf, too much inside, walling up, being big, not crashing down. I mean, you look on the wings, Roddy Gale and Namari Burnett, that game against Purdue, they just bottled up Fletcher Loyer and Braden Smith and made those guys look pedestrian. That's one of the better backcourts in the country. So when they play that way, it's big time. But I look at Wisconsin, I look at them moving on this tournament. You need a star in John Tonje. John Blackwell has been big time all season long. Max Klesman connects every piece together in that locker room. He's the connector on both ends. But they're going to need Stephen Crowd. They're going to need Nolan Winter to be big time in this tournament if they want to move on.
We're going to have Coach here in just a minute, so let's touch on one other team, and that is Purdue. This is another fashionable upset pick here, Rapheal, against High Point. You know High Point's coach quite well because he coached you in high school. We have talked a lot about Purdue's interior defense, maybe ad nauseum. We've talked about Purdue's interior defense, and I feel like I beat that horse. I feel bad about it. But, man, it concerns me against a team that shoots better than 57% from two-point range.
Yeah, I look at High Point, and I look at Coach Allen Huss. Coach Allen Huss is so good of an offensive coach, I average 25 points for him. So he can teach guys how to put the ball in the basket. And I couldn't shoot jumpers either. I was getting into that lane making plays, and that's what High Point wants to do. They got a bunch of 6'4", 6'6" guys running around, causing chaos defensively, but offensively, they want to put that ball on the deck. They want to break you down defensively, wheel and deal, and get into that lane. So for Purdue, Braden Smith, C.J. Cox, Fletcher Loyer, you are going to have to move those puppies. But again, I still think Purdue is too much for High Point. Braden Smith is the best point guard in the country. And Trey Kaufman-Renn should have been the All-American, averaging 20 points a game on 60% from the field. High Point has no answer inside for Trey Kaufman-Renn. You're going to need Cam Heide. You're going to need Miles Colvin and those guys to make shots as complementary pieces, rebound the ball, help take care of the ball. But I think Braden Smith, Trey Kaufman-Renn, too big, too strong inside. I think Purdue gets past High Point and they meet up with Clemson. And Purdue has a season. I know the fans in the media, they may not think so. Purdue could get to an Elite Eight and be facing Tennessee once again.
Well, we shall see. Again, the great run last year all the way to the national championship game. Plenty more from Rapheal. We'll get you through all the Big Ten teams set to make their NCAA tourney debuts over the next couple days. We're going to get you ready for Friday's action. We got 4 Big Ten teams playing there, including 2 guys who tend to dominate March. The women's tourney technically starts Thursday for the Big Ten. Number 1 overall seed UCLA tips off Friday. Hear from the Bruins on their lofty perch in the bracket next. But as promised, Darian DeVries coming up here, the new Indiana coach. I will chat with him live as we continue. It is Big Ten Today here on the Big Ten Network. In case you're just joining us, or in case you just have a really bad memory, Darian DeVries, the new head basketball coach at Indiana. The school made the announcement late yesterday. They introduced him earlier today. DeVries coming from West Virginia, where he spent 1 season. Prior to that, he revitalized the program at Drake. And Darian DeVries, as promised, is today's big interview. Coach, thanks for joining us. I know it's a busy day. I want to talk to you first about the decision to leave West Virginia and to head to Indiana. Leaving a program quickly is not really your style. I mentioned 6 years at Drake. Before that, you spent 20 years at Creighton, including 17 on the staff there as an assistant coach and then 3 in other positions. So what made this a job where you kind of changed who you've been historically and said, I got to leave quickly and get that job?
Yeah, I think when you think about Indiana, it's one of those dream jobs that, if you have the opportunity to be the head coach at Indiana University, you have to take it. And, I think, for me and my family, like it's a great fit for us as well, as was West Virginia. But this is one of those once in a lifetime opportunities to be the head coach here.
You spent your entire life in the Midwest up until last year, really just in Iowa and Nebraska, right? You're in Iowa and then you cross the river into Omaha. And as I mentioned, spent 20 years there at Creighton. So you understand the Big Ten, even if you haven't been a part of the Big Ten, obviously brothers who were Big Ten football players. And so none of this is new to you. But give me a sense of kind of your take on Big Ten basketball and what this region in this area of the country mean to you.
Yeah, great basketball league. Everybody knows that. Great conference overall. And you think about Big Ten basketball, it's big, it's physical, it's well coached. There's great players, and then it's just from top to bottom, just one of the best leagues, if not the best league in the country.
Well, anyone who's from the Midwest, as you are, knows the expectations at Indiana, and anyone who follows college basketball knows they haven't really lived up to those expectations consistently in quite a while. What do you believe the formula is for getting IU into the spot where the fan base, where the alums, where everyone who follows the sport wants it to be?
Yeah, the number one thing, it comes down to staff and then recruiting and retention and making sure that the people you have in your locker room are about the right things and committed to the things it takes to win. And then I think you can't deviate from what those are. You got to stay true to the things you believe in and the process of getting there. And if you do that, those wins and losses will follow, based on how well you do those things.
You mentioned sticking to the things you believe in. What do you believe in?
Yeah, I think you got to have a great locker room. The players that are going to come play for you, they got to want to be there for the right reasons. You got to, in today's era, with the portal, you got to make sure that you're building a team and not just a collection of individual players that don't fit well together. And that's our thing as we begin to assemble a staff and a team is let's put together guys that complement each other, that they can play well together. They're self-motivated. They're hungry to not only get better as individuals, but hungry to succeed and play at the highest level.
You said something that was really interesting that resonated with me in your news conference. You said you're not building a collection of players. you are building a team. And I just think it's challenging. I mean, I've talked to so many coaches about this. We were mentioning this just yesterday, kind of this notion that it's almost speed dating now, and that it is harder to figure out kind of what's at the fabric of a young person. What do they believe in? How important is it to them to be a part of the team versus some of the other stuff that might factor into recruitment? You did a really nice job of that at West Virginia last year. And so how did you approach that? How do you get to know players in that shorter period of time and figure out what's motivating them?
Yeah, I think it always helps when you have relationships from your staff. Maybe they had recruited them previously, or they know their high school coach or club coach, whatever it may be, so that you already have kind of some built-in information. But then you got to do your homework, and in a short period of time, make as many connections as you can. Trust your gut and your instincts a little bit. After doing this for a long time, you get a pretty good feel for kids and what they're about and the type of questions they ask and how they interact with people. And those things all matter, I think, when you're trying to put a team together, is making sure that those things all align with what's important to you.
It's interesting to me to always look to mentors to try to get a sense for someone. And you had two great ones at Creighton, Dane Altman and Greg McDermott. Dane, obviously, in the Big Ten now. You played for Eldon Miller, who old school Big Ten fans know was a fabulous coach at Ohio State in this league. So you've had a few. Give me a sense of what you took from each one of those guys and maybe any others along the way.
Yeah, you mentioned three great ones. I actually got a text from Coach Miller last night congratulating me, and got an opportunity to play for him in college at Northern Iowa, and I think he taught a lot, not just basketball, but everything outside of basketball as well, and made everything a priority. That was important to him, and then you mentioned two of the best in Dana Altman and Greg McDermott. What they've done, in their careers, and the consistency at what they've done it and the way they've gone about it. It's just so impressive, and I'm so fortunate to have been under both of those guys and learned so much from them and the staffs that they had underneath them.
You mentioned consistency being a tenet for each one of those guys. Stylistically, philosophically, are there particular things that you took from each one of them, whether it's about playing on the court or whether it's about building the program?
Yeah, they're both a little bit different in the way they go about it, what they stress, maybe offensively or defensively. But I think just the way they show up every day and the way they treat their team and the way they approach practice from a consistent level of making sure you're never too high, never too low, and making sure you're always making progress as that season goes on. And I just love the way they both do it in their own unique styles. And I've taken what I could from them as much as possible and try to apply it to my own personality and the way we want to do things.
You touched on this a little bit in your news conference. You said offensively you'd love to get a shot up in 12 seconds. It's interesting looking back kind of stylistically on your teams and trying to piece together your career. I mean, you've had some teams that have played pretty quickly. You've had some teams that have played at slower and more deliberate paces as well. You've had teams that were better on offense than defense. You've had teams that were better on defense than offense, which I always think is the tenet of a great coach, right? That you tend to adapt to whatever it is your roster is in a given year. Above and beyond that, hey, in an ideal world, we'd love to shoot in 12 seconds. Like, what do you want this to be when you've got your program humming 2-3 years from now, that it's exactly the group that you want to have there and you've been able to kind of put your blueprint on it? What does it look like? What will IU basketball look like?
Yeah, offensively, I'd love to get out and run and play in transition, trying to, take advantage of every opportunity we can against a broken floor. It's so much easier to score against a non-set defense and then to get the ball popping and it's going side to side and you're shooting threes and getting paint touches. And then defensively, just being physical and tough and really playing with a lot of kind of urgency and on that end of the floor. And we want to be the aggressor. And I think ultimately, aggressiveness gets rewarded, toughness gets rewarded, and we want to be able to do that at both the defense and the offensive end.
Coach, I'm going to leave you with this. You do not need me to tell you this, and you addressed this a little bit in your news conference today, but basketball matters deeply to the people of Indiana. It is in the fiber of their being. And there has been a lot of frustration about where Indiana basketball has been, with a few notable exceptions and a couple of years where it's been pretty good. But largely here over the last couple decades, it just hasn't been the program that Hoosier fans want it to be. So what is your message to the fan base at Indiana about what they should expect?
Yeah, for us, we're going to work, and that's what I can promise is that we're going to come in, we're going to work our tails off. Our staff we're going to put together what we feel is a great combination of players that are motivated to get us to that highest level possible. They want to commit to each other, the team getting better. They're self-motivated, and then when we get that, and you get a collection of guys in a locker room and a staff that's putting the effort that we're going to put in. We're hoping those wins and losses come out on the plus side for us more nights than not.
Darian DeVries, congratulations on this job. We are thrilled to have you in the Big Ten and look forward to see what Hoosier basketball looks like here in the immediate term and of course, in the long term as well. Thanks, Coach, and good luck.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
So that is Darian DeVries, the new IU coach. How about some of the guys he'll be tangling with? Tom Izzo and one of his mentors that we just talked about, Dana Altman. They get things going in the NCAA tournament on Friday. We'll run through their games as we continue here on Big Ten Today. We're back on Big Ten Today. Dave Revs and Rapheal Davis with you. Great to chat with Darian DeVries there. We do want to continue our previews of the NCAA tournament. We deviated a little bit from our plan because we did not want to keep Coach waiting. So it was one Thursday team that we did not touch on. Let's touch on UCLA. They begin things against Utah State on Thursday. They come to the Midwest, playing in Lexington, Kentucky. What are you expecting from Mick Cronin's crew?
I'm expecting them to get back to business as usual. They went to Indianapolis, and they got ran out of their gym by Wisconsin. Wisconsin makes 19 threes. John Tonje and John Blackwell looked unbelievable. And UCLA struggled to score the basketball. You look at the starting five, only one guy in double figures. But it's March now. You need your guards to play better. In Indianapolis, UCLA's guards, they just stayed out in California. Sky Clark and Dylan Andrews were not at their best in the Big Ten tournament, going 5 for 18, only scoring 14 points against Wisconsin. If UCLA wants to get past Utah State, the guards are going to have to be better. Eric Daly's going to have to score that basketball. But when you look at the matchup, Utah State, one of the better offenses in the country, UCLA, one of the better defenses in the country, something's going to have to give out. But those guards are going to have to score and make some shots.
They have to play better than they did in Indy. Pretty uninspired effort. I think that they will use that time wisely,
they have some hard
knowing the way that Mick motivates guys, and we'll see. He was talking about an interesting dynamic there. Jared Calhoun is someone that he has mentored and spent a lot of time with from the same coaching tree. So it'll be fascinating to see the two of them going head-to-head. So let's dive into the big board as we go ahead to Friday now. What a massive day it is in the Big Ten. You got 4 men's teams beginning their NCAA tourney journeys. Maryland, Illinois, Michigan State, Oregon all in action. We'll touch on them all in a minute. Also the day the main draw of the women's tourney gets underway. Remember the Big Ten, a dozen teams in that tournament. Michigan, Indiana, Ohio State, Oregon, Nebraska, UCLA, all tipping things off. The Bruins, of course, the #1 overall seed in the tourney. Our big stat focusing back on the men. It's brought to you by Walmart. By at least one measure, the Big Ten has never had more lofty seeds in the big dance than this year. No fewer than 6 conference teams are seeded 5th or higher. That eclipses by 1 the previous mark, which, as you can see, was set 4 times, most recently 4 years ago. So let's run through some of those high seeds. We start with Michigan State. They're the highest seeded team of anyone in the Big Ten. They are a #2 seed in the dance. But I still feel like even though they lost in the Big Ten tournament and didn't get the #1 seed that I think some of them were hoping they might get were they to run through the Big Ten tourney, I still feel like this is a team that heads in with a ton of momentum, a ton of confidence, and it feels like the best chance to make a Final Four of a Tom Izzo team that we've seen since he last made it 6 years ago?
Oh, 100%. I look at their draw, and I look at who they have to face. You start with Bryant. I think they get past Bryant. I think Michigan State right now is in such a rhythm, and they have their go-to guy. Jace Richardson is a lottery pick, and you need NBA players to make deep runs in the NCAA tournament. In Michigan State, they have that. The tenacious defense that they put out there on the floor is tough to beat. And you look at it, you get past Bryant, you get to Iowa State in that next game, no Keyshawn Gilbert. Curtis Jones is not enough on the perimeter to take down the Spartans. You got Trey Holloman, you got Jay Nakins, you got Jeremy Fears, three of the best perimeter defenders you will see in the United States. And then you get to Marquette, or say you get to New Mexico, and it's the same story. Cam Jones is a baller. Cam Jones can get a triple-double on any given night, can flat out put the ball in the hole. But I trust Jay Nakins in that matchup. Jay Nakins can take a guy out of a game single-handedly. And say Jay Nakins gets into some foul trouble, and you're playing New Mexico, and you have Donovan Dent, a baller. He can score the ball at a high level, one of the best scorers you will see in the tournament. Trey Holloman, high-level defender. Michigan State, their defense is going to keep them in any game. I think they get all the way to the Elite Eight. I think they're playing Michigan, but the rhythm they're in right now, and we starting to see them make some shots from deep, I think Michigan State is going to be a tough out for anyone.
Remember, Auburn is the number 1 seed there. It bums me out a little bit that Michigan State is the number 7 overall seed in the tournament, yet they're opposite the number 1 overall seed in Auburn. So a little bit of an unfortunate draw there, but we shall see. What about Maryland? I know this is a team.
I start smiling.
Right? That you've been high on. Yes. For quite a while.
Yes.
So what do you think of how Maryland was treated as a 4 seed? They take on Grand Canyon. Bryce Drew's had a lot of success there. This is a good program, a program that expects to be in the tournament every year. What are you expecting in Maryland early on here against Grand Canyon, and then presumably moving through the bracket, given the praise that you've heaped upon them this year?
Oh, yeah. I think that first game of the Big Ten tournament that Maryland played in, it showed the entire country what Maryland's depth could do. You face Illinois, a 6 seed in the tournament, a team that can make a deep run, and you blow the doors off of those dudes, and none of your starters played more than 25 minutes in the game. And Julian Reese and Derek Queen both pick up 2 fouls in the first half, so they're in foul trouble. Everyone's saying, who would Maryland be if they get into some foul trouble? Well, they showed you against Illinois. I love Maryland because they can beat you in a fast-paced game. They can beat you in a half-court game. They can get you on the glass. They can get you with the defense. The collective of guards, they all can make shots. Rodney Rice is a pro. Jacoby Gillespie is a computer guard that can control the tempo of a game. So I have them getting past Grand Canyon. Grand Canyon, they want to go up and down. Maryland has no issues with that. And you get to Memphis, I have them going past Memphis because I know P.J. Haggerty is a problem, but you have Selton Miguel, you have Rodney Rice to kind of take him out of the game defensively. And I watched a lot of Dane Danger. He cannot handle Julian Reese and Derek Queen down low on those blocks. You get past Memphis, I think you get to Florida. Florida, the pick that everyone's taking to win a national championship. Walter Clayton is a baller. Rodney Rice is a baller as well, but I don't think Florida has enough inside for Julian Reese and Derek Queen. When I look at Thomas Hall, 6'9", 210, too light in the pants to guard Derek Queen on the block, too light in the pants to keep Derek Queen out of the lane. So I think Derek Queen is enough to get those guys past Texas in that game. You get to Texas Tech or St. John's. St. John's, they want to turn you over. They want to make it fast-paced. But if it's a collective of guards that I trust against a high-pressure defense, it's Maryland's, it's Rodney Rice, it's Selton Miguel, it's Jacoby Gillespie, and then you get all the way to the Final Four. All Big Ten Final Four on that side of the bracket for me. Maryland versus, I don't have it filled out yet, Michigan or Michigan State to see who's going to play for that national championship.
You have to decide tonight. There's going to be some high-level analytics going on with Rapheal tonight before he turns in that bracket to decide on Michigan or Michigan State. I know you've been high on Maryland all year. I'd love to see Maryland against St. John's. That would be really good. St. John's is an outstanding defensive team. We know Maryland can get up and down. Okay, what about Oregon? They were the hottest team at the end of the regular season in the Big Ten, aside from Michigan State. We heard Darian DeVries heaping some praise upon Dana Altman. He's been incredible, obviously, in his time in March. He's the winningest March coach in all of college basketball during his time at Oregon. Are the Ducks in a position, you think, to make a deep run here?
Oh, I 100% think so, because they're rolling right now, just like they were rolling to start the season. At the beginning of this season, we may have forgotten, but Oregon was a team that took down Alabama. You took down San Diego State. You had some momentum headed into the Big Ten conference season, and they just got punched in the mouth. Those West Coast dudes, they had to get used to this Big Ten toughness, and they found it towards the end of the Big Ten season. Nate Biddle is a problem. Nate Biddle is too much for Liberty to handle. If Jackson Shellstad shows up and he's half of what we think he is going against Liberty, I think they get past that game. But I'd love to see Oregon and Arizona play in that second round. An old school Pac-12 battle. But you look at Caleb Love, one of the better guards in this tournament. I look at TJ Bamba as one of the better defenders in the country. So TJ Bamba, Caleb Love, I think that's going to be a fascinating matchup. I think Oregon takes down Arizona with their size and their athleticism. You get to Duke in that next game. And if Cooper Flagg is a little hobbled and you look at Oregon's athleticism and their depth with their talent, I mean, Kwame Evans was one of the better guys coming out of high school athleticism-wise. He can match up with those Duke wings athleticism, and he can compete at the rim. But you need Jackson Shellstad to be at his best. You need Keyshawn Barthélemy to be confident making shots. You need Bam Tracy to come off the bench and give you something offensively, because if all of this happens, Oregon could really surprise some people and really get to that Duke game.
Duke's really good, but I do think the whole Cooper Flagg issue is fascinating, and just how healthy is he truly? We're talking about a game that would be a couple weeks on, right? Were they to get to it, right? You have a whole week off for him to recover, but I just think it's fascinating to see kind of where Duke is without him. They still got a number of first-round picks on that team.
That's true.
But it's inarguable that you take the likely National Player of the Year off the team.
Right.
You wouldn't decline somewhat. Okay, so Maryland's been your guys. Illinois been my guys all year.
Yes.
As you know, I'm just in love with the ceiling on this team, but man, it has been a roller coaster. At a certain point, you say they're 9-9 in the last 18 games, and I just don't know. Like, I guess I almost want to hop off the bandwagon just so I can be proven wrong, to then in a roundabout way be proven right.
Right.
Or I can say that's what I was thinking all along. But I don't see them winning 4 straight games and making it to the Final Four with the way they've been playing. I just think they've been too wildly inconsistent, and yet the talent is so tantalizing.
Yeah, but like what you've been saying all season, if they all connect on the same page for a few weeks straight, Illinois is a team that has a talent that could make that run, because you look at it, what wins in the NCAA tournament is pros. And you look at Illinois roster right now, they not just have some pros, they have 3 first-round draft picks on that roster. And if they hit some rhythm all at the same time, it could be nights out for some teams. Because you look at it, Texas and Xavier, I'm not afraid of either of those teams if I'm Illinois. Texas, Trey Johnson can really score. Sean Miller is a phenomenal coach. But Illinois has too much talent for those guys overall. You get to Kentucky, they're a little hobbled right now, limping into the NCAA tournament. But you look at it, Kentucky doesn't guard. They're going to let Illinois run up and down, and that's where Illinois thrives. If they're able to go out there and play free-flowing basketball, getting out in transition, Kylan Boswell, Trey White cutting to the basket, I have Illinois going to the Sweet 16, facing up in a rematch against Tennessee, and I think they could win that game.
Well, they showed they could win it the first time through, did everything but win it.
Exactly.
So, I don't know. Again, like, I was back on the bandwagon when they finished the regular season winning 4 straight, and then we saw them against Maryland. Like, oh, man.
But Maryland's going to be our national champion.
Right. So if you have a bad game against the national champ, what does that make you? It makes you arguably the second best team in the country. So we're aligned here. A big weekend coming up in Ann Arbor. The conference's best gymnasts set to gather with conference titles on the line. Everything you need to know next. The conference will crown a postseason gymnastics champ this weekend. The Big Ten Women's Gymnastics Championships at the Chrysler Center in Ann Arbor. 3 sessions in all, starting Friday night, then continuing Saturday afternoon and evening right here on the Big Ten Network. And as always, you can also see it on the Fox Sports app. And former Michigan All-American Olivia Karras joins us now. She will be on the call all weekend, heading back to alma mater to cover gymnastics in the Big Ten, bigger and better than ever this year. The addition of 2 new schools, Washington and UCLA. Give people the lay of the land first, because there are 3 different sessions, so help them understand how that is allocated, who goes when.
That's right, and that's a great question. So the first session is on Friday night, and everything is seeded by win-loss, which is actually unique to the Big Ten Conference. In the SEC and other conferences, it's seeded by your average, your NQS, which is your national qualifying score. It's just a method for seeding for averages in order to put everyone in the right place. But Big Ten's win-loss. So everyone in the Friday evening session has the lower record of the teams. The afternoon session will be the middle, and then your evening session, the headline session, so to speak, will include the undefeated UCLA Bruins and then a couple other teams that had winning records.
Let's talk about UCLA. I mean, they kind of steamrolled through the conference. They were undefeated in conference meets and a fun team. I mean, the enthusiasm that surrounds this program is really cool, that people just get behind it in Westwood. Give people a sense for how good this UCLA team is.
They're fantastic. And of course, you hear the name Jordan Childs and you're immediately reminded of her Olympic accolades and everything that comes with that. But what's so amazing about this UCLA team is she's not the only Olympian. Brooklyn Moores is an Olympian from Canada. Emma Malabuyo went to the Olympics for the Philippines. And so they're stacked with so much talent, including someone like Shea Campbell, who in her 5th year is competing the all-around incredibly consistently. I believe she's ranked number 3 in the conference in the all-around, who was in and out of the all-around in her career. So they have a stacked lineup, not just of these big heavy hitter names, but athletes who bring this energy, and you mention it. There's so much positive. They always say Hollywood's in our backyard, so we're going to perform like we're in Hollywood, and they do everywhere they go.
It's really neat to see the meets from Pauley and the way that people turn out and the enthusiasm behind the program. I've been told that that was the case, but to actually see it this year has been pretty wild. A program that's won 7 national championships. And to give you a comparison, Michigan is the lone team in the old Big Ten with a national championship. Okay, so let's go through the session. Start with that early session. As you said, these are the teams that finish lower in the standings. It's not to say there aren't some outstanding teams and some outstanding individuals, though, there. So what are you most looking forward to early?
It's so important to note that the number 1 ranked all-around gymnast in the conference comes from Ohio State, and that's Tori Vetter. And she is competing in that first session. So it's really important for fans to understand that you can win an event, an all-around title, a team title from any of these sessions. It's not just the evening session. So Tori Vetter is incredibly important to watch out for, as she could put up a big score on Friday night, and that score could hold going into the remainder of the competition, which is incredibly important. And then Rutgers is a young team. They have a slew of freshmen who have been spectacular, and I'm very excited about them. 3rd highest program record score last weekend, so their momentum is really good going into the weekend.
So I have to say, this shows off my naivete a little bit on this and not really following it maybe as closely as I should have this year, but I just kind of assumed that Jordan Childs would be the highest ranked all-around gymnast in the Big Ten. So it's pretty amazing that she isn't, and it speaks to the depth and how good this conference is. So we will certainly want to watch Tori Vetter in that early session. How about the second session? So again, to explain it, these are the teams kind of in the middle.
Right.
Is there a team or an individual or something that really piques your interest there?
I've been really impressed with Iowa. I know that they're as well a very young team. They have 3 Canadians who were Olympians in 2024 on this team. So that's Sydney Turner, Cassie Lee, Aurelie Tran. Aurelie Tran, one of the best freshmen, not just in the Big Ten, but in the country, putting up a career-high 39.5 score last weekend in the all-around. So clearly a spectacular athlete to watch out for. And Iowa's the only team of those 4 in the second session to hit that 197 mark. And that's about averaging a 9.85 on every event for every score. So that's really impressive. But I really like Maryland. I've always liked Maryland as a team. I think they're great. It's going to come down to landings for them. And if they can be on fire with stuck landings, they could put up a good fight for that second session.
Let's get into some of the individual events here. And the floor is the one I think that really gets people going, just the duration of it and the fact you got the music accompanying it and the crowd can really get enthused. So give us a sense of kind of who we ought to be watching there and who the favorites are on floor.
Well, of course, you think of Jordan Childs, but I, in the Big Ten, think of Maya Houghton. Maya Houghton, the 5th year, 9 perfect 10s in her career in Minnesota. She's a Minnesota-born and raised girl competing in the PAV. Everyone just gets so excited, and she's been a favorite every year she's competed in the Big Ten. You cannot not talk about the reigning Big Ten champs, Michigan State, who have Nikki Smith, Skyla Schulte, just powerhouses who bring that UCLA-esque energy. And then Michigan has a freshman, Jazara Ranger, who has been phenomenal on the event. She's the anchor, so she's the last competitor for the Wolverines on that event, and she really brings fantastic energy, high tumbling, great caliber gymnastics.
You mentioned Michigan State. I think we should point out Michigan State is ranked in the top 10 in the nation as well. I mean, a lot of hype and deserved hype around UCLA, but Michigan State has had a fabulous year. So those are kind of the teams you would think of as the favorites. Is there a dark horse team that we haven't talked about or maybe haven't elaborated on that you could see being a factor here?
My dark horse is Nebraska. Nebraska is ranked in the NQS, as I mentioned before. Their average is actually 5th in the conference. However, their win-loss seeded them in the Friday session. So people should be very mindful of the fact that Nebraska has consistently been a great team this season. While they're in that early session, they have Emma Spence, the amazing all-arounder, Sophia McClelland, a 5th year who's been spectacular, Whitney Jenks, a sophomore who had a great freshman year who's just put it together this year. And if they can find their stride early on in the competition, they're dangerous for the remainder of the meet.
20th ranked team in the nation. So again, that speaks to the depth of the Big Ten. So here is the big question. You've already talked about UCLA being the pretty clear-cut team favorite. Who wins the all-around?
Oh gosh, that's the question, right? You know, last week, Jordan Childs had a little bit of an off competition at Utah in an incredibly vibrant, energetic area in Huntsman. And so I would love to see her come back after that and have a great meet. But Gabby Stephen from Michigan State has been clutch all year, similar with Nikki Smith. She's found her stride on balance beam that's really led her forward on that event and in the all-around. And then Shea Campbell is just fantastic. She's really dialing in to everything. Career high 995 on beam last week. So she's certainly up there with her teammate Jordan Childs to come away with the title.
It should be a tremendous meet. And again, I mean, we are talking about multiple Olympians competing here. We're talking about some of the best, not just in college gymnastics, but in the world. It's really incredible to think about this gathering of talent in the Big Ten. Thrilled to have you calling it for us, Olivia. Have fun in Ann Arbor. Enjoy alma mater.
Yes.
And we look forward to the calls here all weekend on the Big Ten Network. The dramatic conclusion of our show next. The individuals that Rapheal is most looking forward to watching in the NCAA tourney. You might even call them his guys. Certainly he will. Wrapping things up here on Big Ten today, we had hoped to allocate more time to this because it takes Rapheal about 15 minutes to name all of his guys, but we have about 30 seconds. So who are you most looking forward to watching in the tournament?
I'm going to give you just 5 of them. I'm going my guy, Marez Johnson, big fella inside. The tournament is not ready for the man-child. Rodney Rice from Maryland can score the basketball in bunches. A big-time player on both ends. Everyone knows Trey Holloman is my guy. One of the better players you will watch in this tournament on both ends. Trey Donaldson needs to be big-time. And then Trey Kaufman-Renn is going to remind everyone out there that he should have been the first, second, or third All-American.
Well, you had about 7 seconds left. I mean, you could have fit 3 or 4 more guys in. Thanks so much for watching Big Ten today.